Do you want to bring balance to all the wireless radiation fields in your life, including 5G? The Omnia Radiation Balancer is a small sticker you can stick on any device. It changes the state of the field and creates a new resonance between the wireless radiation and your energy field. On the link below, you'll see all our testing results that show how the body responds excellently once you've made this change in your life. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount. It's easy to bring balance back to your body with the Omnia Radiation Balancer.
Well, we don't call UAP either.
Right. That's the admiral said that was just a scam to try to divert attention away from all the history that is behind the UFO community.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, they're like rebranding it.
Rebranding. Right. Yeah. That's what so you guys know the correct way to describe what they're trying to do. Yeah. So that's the ICC. We go over who's the enemy. The ICC, the Nazis. ICC is the United States military. The ICC, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, the Nazis, and then that is actually the Draconian Empire, who they made an agreement with back in '56.
Okay.
And of course, it goes further back because, like Corey said, it's a 250,000-year-old genetic engineering program. There's actually 26 programs. They're not experiments, they're genetic engineering programs. We were all GMO'd.
All right, guys, welcome back. Tonight we're joined by Dan Cooper. So Dan was somebody who I came across. He commented on our episode with Dan Willis. In that episode, we were talking about how no one actually has proof to verify these secret space programs. And he came in with a comment. He's like, I know somebody who does have proof. And I was like, oh, yeah, who? And then he's like, it's me. So we ended up getting each other's contact information. And we've been talking for a few months now, I would say, Dan. And some really, really great information. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's going to be, we're going to go over his testimonies, some current stuff, just a lot of what's going on right now. There's tons to cover. This is going to be a 2-part episode, maybe even more, depending on how deep we actually go. Before we get started, guys, just reminder of the promo codes. Journey to Truth 10 gets you 10% off Hopewell Farm CBD. If you're looking for a new CBD to try, I highly recommend it. Really good stuff. And they have free shipping for any purchases over $200. They offer veteran discounts. They even accept crypto payments, any coins on Coinbase. And then Teespring, we have 15% off of all of our Teespring merchandise with promo code CGI Joe. And that gets you 15% off all of our merchandise. And that's not a bad deal. I realize that some of the Teespring stuff can get pretty pricey with shipping. So take advantage of it while we're offering that. Other than that, welcome to the show, Dan. I'm glad to have you.
Thanks. So go ahead. Shoot.
Okay. So, I mean, from people have gathered already from the thumbnail and the description, what this is about, your experience in the secret space program in the military. But we've decided that we want to get into some of the current information that you're privy to right now. Some of the chatter that's going on behind the scenes that maybe other people aren't aware of. And I was just curious on what your take is on what's actually going on right now is in space and with these corporations and the liberation of Earth from the Draconian Empire, all that stuff. What does that look like right now?
Right. Yeah, that's really what's most important is what's current, because it impacts all of humanity on the surface that were traded into slavery in 1956, but they didn't really have a choice. I have to go back to some history. When I say something, there has to be some history behind it. The Nazis actually defeated the United States in 1952. It was actually July 19th, 1952. They had actually developed the technology, Warp 1 capability, and they had about, I think it was 36 ships that hovered over the Capitol for 6 hours. And if you actually go into the Washington Post, which was obscured recently, it actually said that they hovered over the Capitol, the White House, for 6 hours. And it was really interesting because on that particular day, and there is proof, all of Congress was there at the Capitol building at that time, voting on the new patent laws, actually. And so they were all there at that time. And the Nazis actually beamed down 600 troopers, and they captured everybody, and they forced them to sign a ceasefire agreement at the time. So on July 19, 1952, the Nazis forced the United States to surrender by signing, all of Congress, the president, everybody signed it, the ceasefire agreement. Then in 1956, the Nazis, of course, the United States had already surrendered to the United States. So in 56, whatever the United States signed, they had to sign according to the treaty that they had signed in 52 with the Nazis, that they surrendered almost unconditionally. You fly 36 Warp 1 ships over your building, and all you have is machine guns. Yeah, you're going to surrender. So we did. And the Nazis actually developed that technology on their own. A lot of testifiers say that technology was handed to the Nazis. It wasn't. The Nazis, the main aspect of the technology was the Sixth Force, which they purchased from Nikola Tesla in 1927 for $2 million. In today's currency, it's worth $50 million. And that was his price that he had laid out to the United States ever since he discovered the Sixth Force. The Sixth Force is an anti-gravity. There are different forces, different energy forms. And everybody knows about electricity and magnetic energy. Those are different energy forms. And then the next one past that is the Sixth Force, which is anti-gravity. It's an energy force that repels gravity at the speed of light. And so that permits Warp 1, superluminal transportation speed. And that's what the Nazis had. They had the Sixth Force, and they actually purchased it from Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla was trying to sell it to the United States for 27 years before he actually sold it to the Nazis, because the U.S. wouldn't buy it. And he wasn't going to give it to them. They said, well, just give it to us, And they said, no, I want $2 million because I want more research facilities to develop that energy force. And they just wouldn't do it. And he had been, I can't say that word, but he had been cheated by so many United States corporate entities, Westinghouse and some other people. They had cheated him for so many years. He got really sick of it. And he finally decided to sell the Sixth Force to the Nazis. But it took 27 years of pleading to the United States to sell the Sixth Force to them before he decided to sell it to the Nazis. And the Nazis took full advantage of it, and they won the war because of it. Those are highly kept secrets, by the way.
So yeah. Tesla was he aware of what the Nazis were going to do with this technology when he sold it?
Yeah, because it was Nikola Tesla participate. He didn't just sell the Sixth. Well, you have to understand, he had developed the Sixth Force for 27 years. And there's actually 2 honorary patents in the patent database. There's only 2 patents of the Sixth Force in the patent library. Remember, I'm a physicist and I write patents. And I go into the patent library often. So there were 2 patents, one in 1921 that he filed, and another one, which is a modification of the 21 patent in 27. He was awarded the patent in 28 on anti-gravity. Basically what he designed, it was an anti-gravity aircraft using the Sixth Force. And I can show you the patents, not right now. We'll do it another time. I'll give you all this stuff later, when I'll show you the patents. But really, that patent was, the Star Wars, you see the little scooters, the guys get on the scooters and they're about 3 feet off the ground. They scoot along off the ground. That's the Sixth Force. That's the Sixth Force scooter. That's actually a real product. That scooter.
Wow.
A lot of the stuff in Star Wars you see are actually real devices that the secret space program uses. And that was one of them. But Nikola Tesla invented it and filed for a patent on it in 1921. So that's when the Nazis became aware of them, because all patents at the time are everybody in the whole world is the major patent offices all get the preliminary patents. That's why the Nazis were aware of what Nikola Tesla had, because he had filed that patent in 21. And then they actually sent agents to see the device. Nikola Tesla did a demonstration in 21 of the device, but he said, no, I'm not going to sell it to you because I'm still with the United States. I'm a citizen of the United States. I still want these guys to purchase it. And they wouldn't do it. all the way into 27. Finally, in 27, when he started negotiating with the Nazis, they gave him a patent on the device in 28, but it was too late. He'd already sold the six force. And in 1901, Nikola Tesla had actually discovered, there's actually a drawing and some other things, not a drawing, but photos of him transporting a gorilla from one cage into another using the sixth force. The sixth force can do many things. And Nikola Tesla had discovered how to make transporters in 1901 with the sixth force. So all that, he sold all that technology to the Nazis. So the Nazis, there was only one piece that Nikola Tesla didn't, there were two pieces that Nikola Tesla didn't invent that were necessary for the Warp 1 ship. One was the mass production device that the Navy just released. That was actually done by a Nazi scientist, the mass production device, the one that, you guys know what I'm talking about, the mass production device, the patent?
I actually have a T-shirt with it, with that patent on the T-shirt.
That was actually invented by a Nazi. And so Nikola Tesla didn't develop every part of the Warp 1 ship, but in 1929, Nikola Tesla did patent it. He actually patented, and that drawing that you see that of the ship, that is actually the 1929 patent, but that's not in the patent library. The reason they put the 1921 patent in the library is because it's an honorary patent for Nikola Tesla to prove that he was the first one to patent all this stuff. And there are no other patents in the library that Nikola Tesla patented. The transporter was patented, the spaceship would, go ahead.
So is that the technology they use for the Nazi bell?
The Nazi bell, what the Nazi bell is it's an experiment. And you can see that big old cord that was attached to it. That's actually a 1 megawatt, because it takes 1 megawatt to you have to have enough electricity to release the sixth force. Okay, it's hard to explain why that is. All right,
sure.
But you need 1 megawatt of electricity to release enough of the sixth force to raise that bell. So the wire that was connected to the bell gave that 1 megawatt of electricity. But there was a Nazi scientist that had developed an over-unity device, an over-unity generator the size of a chest, that produced that 1 megawatt of electricity. And the reason I know that is because I actually reinvented it, that particular device. A solid-state device this big that I invented will operate everything in your house, 25 kilowatts continuous, will operate everything in your house for 30 years straight, because nothing moves. It's transformer technology. So the Nazis were, now Nikola Tesla also invented over-unity generators, but his weren't as good as the Nazi ones. So the Nazis had provided two key pieces of technology that was necessary for a Warp 1 ship, but Nikola Tesla was the one that provided the sixth force. And that was, of course, the key piece of technology.
Yeah.
You know, the sixth force repels gravity at the speed of light.
Wow.
Yeah,
man, you got all this. It's like you've been bursting at the seams, waiting to get this information out.
I always wanted to become. I was practicing law for 25 years, and the CIA wouldn't let me. So it's hard to explain. When you're a super soldier, they assign a control. The CIA assigns a controller to you, someone to watch you to make sure you don't get in trouble, because you're immune. You're immune from prosecution. You're immune from anybody messing with you. Because of the 20 years service that I did, that makes me immune, and it makes me dangerous in a sense. So the CIA assigns a controller. So my controller, Branko Belichevsky, he died. And I'll tell you a lot about him in time. He said, well, I'm a white hat. You know, so we'll go over white hats. And he told me about white hats. He told me lots of stuff during the 17 and a half years I worked for the CIA as a paralegal. And they said, well, we're not going to let you have a law license because you're too powerful. You know, you win every case you do. And you've won every case for us. He said, there's the last thing we're going to do is give you a license to let you go out there and beat on the government. I had my original legal work. I was suing government. I was really good at. I'm really good at suing government, called mandamus. And I always wanted to be an inventor. So towards the end of Branko's life, he said, yeah, we looked into the looking glass, and you need to pursue that. And I go, okay. So, but I couldn't really pursue it until I had retired, you know, until you get a retirement check, you can't stop working for income, because I was raising 2 kids. And so I couldn't really stop working until April 2014. So on April 2014, that's when I began my physics career, when I was getting a retirement paycheck from the government, and I could work full time on that. And that's when I really started. But I started discovering all kinds. I discovered over-unity right away within the first month. And I was designing over-unity generators. And that's when the Admiral came on to me that same month. because then when you discover over Unity, they assign a controller to you. The NSA assigns a controller to you. So I had 2 controllers on me, one because I was a super soldier, one because I was a physicist who discovered over Unity. And then in September of 2014, I discovered the 6th Force on my own. And then I started looking around for who else had discovered it. Actually, the NSA asked me that the admiral asked me, he said, how many people have independently derived the 6th Force other than you? And who was the first? And I said, wow, you really want me to look that up? And he goes, well, yeah, we're kind of curious if you can figure it out. So I did. I figured out Nikola Tesla was first, and I figured out the evidence. I looked at the evidence and figured out, said Nikola Tesla, and then a few others. I kind of guessed at the others because you can't really tell. There's not that much evidence out there. But he said, how many? And I said 5. My CIA controller asked me the same thing. How many did that? How many independently derived the 6th Force like you did? And I said, it can't be any more than 5. And he said, yeah, you're right. There's only 5 people in the world that ever done that, that ever independently derived the 6th Force. And it was really kind of interesting. I mean, I'm going to actually tell you if you want to hear it. I'll keep it quick. You want to hear how it was done? Yeah. All right. So I'm sitting in my kitchen at my Yucca Valley house. Actually, I'm returning my Yucca Valley house. Right now, I'm in Pueblo, Colorado, but I'm returning next month to my Yucca Valley house that I share with my twin brother, who was also a super soldier with me. We were in the twin program, and we'll go over that too. That's really cool.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that.
Yeah, we'll really go over to the twin program. So both he and I are real famous in the secret space program as super soldiers, specifically Dark Fleet super soldiers. Anyway, so I'm sitting in my kitchen and I hear this real loud rumbling, and I thought it was like a rat in my dryer. And so I run over to the dryer, which was right behind me, the laundry room, looked in the dryer, nothing. I'm going, oh, this is really strange. And that happened about 3 times before I finally figured out it was actually lightning that was causing it, and it was actually a force released. And so I contacted the admiral. I said, I just discovered a new energy form. And he said, oh, yeah, tell me how you did that. So what it is lightning actually hits a specific element. It's actually aluminum oxide, because I had to do the research. He said, well, take a couple of weeks off and see if you can figure it out. So I did. I figured it out. So lightning, and there's a specific electromagnetic waveform that the lightning causes when it hits the ground, or it actually starts from above. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's from lightning. I did the research on lightning. There was a bunch of people in Florida to put out a lot of scientists in Florida put out a lot of articles on what lightning does and all that. And so that's where I got that information from. And I found out the specific electromagnetic waveform and frequency that released the 6th Force from the aluminum oxide, 13% aluminum oxide in the ground where I live. And the same thing in Colorado Springs, where Nikola Tesla discovered 13% aluminum oxide. So it's the aluminum. It's released from the aluminum. And then you see on the, what was that ship? The USS in 19... No. When they did the Philadelphia experiment, it was the USS...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, we just did we just covered this on
okay, so the Philadelphia experiment is the United States they took Nikola Tesla's notes, and they were trying to figure out how the 6th Force was Nikola Tesla had actually figured out how to use the 6th Force to do true cloaking. And they took his notes, and Nikola Tesla always leaves something out. So that was the anyway, the Philadelphia experiment. That was 2 inches of aluminum sheet on top of the ship. If you actually saw the original photos, you'll see the 2 inches thick of aluminum sheet plates on the surface of the ship. And then they had the three quills, two on each of the bow and the stern, and then one in the middle. And then what that does is that does the kind of the lightning release of the lightning energy electromagnetic waveform that released the 6th Force from the aluminum sheets on the deck. See, you understand what I'm trying to say?
USS Eldridge.
That's right, the Eldridge. Yeah. So if you look at the original photos, you'll see the 2 inches of thick aluminum sheet on the deck.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the aluminum. See, what happens is the electromagnetic waveform, when it hits the aluminum sheet, it releases the 6th Force. And then Nikola Tesla had figured out how to use that 6th Force to phase shift matter one step in time behind, just a moment in time. If you move matter one moment in the past or the future in time, actually in the past, then it's no longer there. You can't see it, but it's there. And so the ship disappeared. The experiment was a success, except they didn't realize what was going to happen to the people on board. But they were experimenting by putting all those sailors on board. They wanted to see what was going to happen to the sailors on board. So they were experimenting. But they were trying to catch up to the Nazis because they didn't want to surrender to them They knew they were going to have to surrender to them in 52 because they knew the Nazis had all this stuff, but they were trying to catch up. You can't catch up to Nikola Tesla. Not going to happen. So they didn't catch up. That's what the Philadelphia experiment was all about, the sixth force. So anyway, so what happens is lightning comes down in my area. I'm hanging out there in the summer of 2014, and lightning comes down and releases the sixth force from the aluminum oxide in the sand, and then the sixth force flies across at the speed of light across the surface. And then what happens? What is steel amplifies the sixth force, and so I had a steel chair in between my dryer. And it was just a little bit of air, space in between. So what happens when the sixth force goes in between the two sheets of steel? It makes them. It causes a kinetic effect. Remember, because the sixth force repels gravity. That's a kinetic effect, and so it had a kinetic effect. And that kinetic effect, sound is kinetic effect, and it caused it to rumble in the dryer. The dryer itself was a sound amplifier, and that was where the rumbling came from. So it took me a few times before I actually figured it out, and that's how I figured it out. That's how Nikola Tesla figured it out, the same way. He had two sheets of steel sitting in his lab, and the rumbling was going on, and he was like, wait a second, this is something different. And he figured it out the same way I did. And the other five scientists who ever figured it out the same way by accident. And there are different ways. For example,
I don't think it's by accident, first of all. I think somehow or another we're guided.
Destiny, but I don't go that far. But that's cool. I agree with that. Anyway, so another proof of the sixth force is you guys ever do any construction work where you drop a lot of nails under the ground and then they go underneath in the sand deep, and then after every storm the nails rise to the surface?
Yeah.
Well, that's the sixth force doing that, and it repels gravity. That's the sixth force.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
doing that. The sixth force is hitting the nails. The nails amplify the effect of the sixth gravity, and then they lift those nails through the sand, the wet sand, right to the surface. And you see it everywhere you go, and you're always picking up nails from your house that the sixth force keeps releasing from the surface from the construction, and you never think about it, but that's true. And another proof of the sixth force is you've heard about the sailing rocks at the Death Valley.
I don't know if I have.
Look it up, sailing rocks in Death Valley, and that's the sixth force, and we'll go over that one again. But there are proofs. Every force is revealed in nature. And if you have the ability to observe it, like Boyd Bushman said, nature speaks to us. If you have the ability to observe it, then you can see these things. Seventh force appears in nature, eighth force appears in nature.
Well, and then you actually have patents for some of the stuff, correct? Your over Unity device?
I have six preliminary patents on over Unity devices, but the latest ones, the ones that are actually going to end up getting released, I didn't patent those yet. Like I said, you want to know what's going on. We're currently trying to come to current events, but I'm giving you some of the history.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's all great. Believe me, this is stuff.
But if you don't know some of the reality of the past, then you won't understand what I'm telling you about the current.
Well,
it won't make sense to you. It won't make sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to keep coming back to what's current. Okay, but I have to give you some history. All right.
Yeah, but
so go ahead.
Sorry, I just to clarify. Yeah. So I get that, because there are people that are going to be listening to this, who, if we just jumped into the current events without front loading them with any information,
any background at all, right?
Yeah, they're going to give.
They go, huh?
Exactly. And we want to make this digestible somewhat. We realize what we cover sometimes is, just that it's just above and beyond.
It's going to be out there no matter what. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, I discovered sixth force, but, people are like, what, but so I have to actually describe it and how simple it was. Well, it's not so simple. Only 5 people have ever done it, but it is simple.
So what's going on right now then, as far as, like I said earlier, the Earth being liberated?
Okay, so in 56, the Nazis made an agreement with the Draconian Empire. Now, you have to understand the Draconians, the reptilians, the Draconians, they rule millions of planets in thousands of galaxies. This is a huge empire. It's not no small little army. So they can reinforce. If you start a battle with them, even if you have comparable technology, which we do now, by the way, and that's because we made. But I'll get to that. The rebellion is the alliance. Okay. The enemy, of course, is the ICC, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. The Nazis, still small faction in the ICC. The United States military that's still with the ICC, and of course the Draconian Empire and all their allies, who are most of the Super Federation. You and I are still calling it Super Federation. General Haim Eshed, he started calling it the Galactic Federation, but it's not. It's the Super Federation is over all galaxies in the entire universe, not just one galaxy. So that the Federation that Haim Eshed was talking about is not the Galactic Federation. It is the Super Federation, and it does consist of 60 alien species, most of which have aligned with the Draconian Empire, who's one of the 60 species that are on the Super Federation. Okay, so a little bit of background there. All right, so it isn't, when we say the Draconian Empire, we're also talking about the Greys.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll talk about the Greys a lot because they are the ones that gave us a lot of the technology that was used in the 20 and back that I got involved in. The Greys gave us the technology to be able to do that. And then the Greys are aligned with the Draconian Empire. You have to understand how vast the Draconian Empire is to understand why the Nazis surrendered to them in 56, because they're just too powerful. And so the agreement they made, of course, the U.S. was already surrendered to the Nazis. The agreement the Nazis made in 56 and signed it was that they were going to give over 90% of Earth's population after we got to 7 billion mark, which was 2014. We were actually all supposed to be delivered up in December of 2014. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm trying to bring you current as to what's going on now. And you don't understand what's going on now unless you understand what happened. So 90% of the population was going to be delivered up into slavery. 10% wasn't, and most of the 10% are actually serving off planet right now. They're actually outside of our solar system. The 10% who weren't supposed to be delivered up, the 90% that were supposed to be delivered up are all of us on the surface that were clueless, and the technology has been suppressed for all that public. We were the slaves that were going to be delivered up in December of 2014. Then in December of 2014, the Spear Beings showed up, and they put an outer barrier around our solar system. They also put one around our planet, but that one got removed shortly after a few things were communicated by the Spear Beings. And the Spear Beings had put that outer barrier up on December 14, 2014. And because the outer barrier can't be penetrated by the Draconian Empire or any of their assets or allies, they can't reinforce themselves. So whatever assets are inside our solar system and locked in by that outer barrier, that's it. That's all they have. So that gives us an opportunity, meaning the Earth Alliance, which is really the BRICS Alliance. You know who the BRICS Alliance are real quick, right? Russia, China, India, South Africa.
Brazil, Russia, India, China.
Right. That's the BRICS Alliance. And then the United States part of that alliance is the White Hats. So we call the military faction of the United States that is fighting with the Earth Alliance against the bad guys. We call them the White Hats. And Bronco's the one that taught me that one. I'm actually the one that passed that one out to everybody. Everybody's using my White Hat's name and then not giving me any credit for it. Yeah.
Oh, no way. That was you.
Yeah. I'm the one that include everybody into. They're called the White Hats. And Bronco was the one that told me that. He said I'm a White Hat. He was a 2-star CIA general when he started controlling me in 1996. And then he got promoted into 3-star. We say there's actually that's not the ranking that the CIA uses. They use the GSA ranking, but nobody understands that. It's easier just to say 3-star general.
Yeah.
So generals, it's the generals that are the White Hats, the generals in the United States that are against the ICC Nazi Draconian alliance and that agreement. They call themselves the White Hats. So they align with the Earth Alliance. Anyway, so it's really important to understand that unless there was an outer barrier by the Spear Beings that couldn't be penetrated, we wouldn't have an opportunity to free ourselves from that agreement in 56. There's no way we could do that. It's not just because we don't have the technology to do it. It's because the Draconian Empire is so vast and it has so many resources, millions and millions of ships, that we could never defeat millions and millions of ships on our own. See? Yeah. And so the Spear Beings gave us the opportunity. Now, I was personally told about the outer barrier in 82. So when Corey started talking about it, I found out about that Corey was talking about it in like 2016 or 2017. I don't know when he first started talking about it, but when he started talking about it, I go, aha, someone else knows about the outer barrier. I was told about it by the Spear Beings in 82. They actually told me, we're going to put this outer. Yeah. Yep. They also told me to teach China how to do business, but that's another long story, okay? And they actually got to do that. That really happened, you know? That was a really cool thing. I was like, you want me to do what? Anyway, 82, and we're going to put up an outer barrier. I said, what? And I said, we'll tell you more about that later when it comes close. So in 2012, 2 years before they put up the outer barrier, they came to me again. They said, now we want you to go to the president and to the secretaries of defense and the heads of the GOP, you know, the heads of both parties, and tell them about the outer barrier. I said, you're right. I said, no. Tell them about the outer barrier. Tell them it's going to come, and we're going to put up the outer barrier. And I said, why? I said, so everybody knows that, you know, in the future that you were the one that foretold of the outer barrier before it was put up, not after it was put up. And I did that. And so there are everybody in the ICC knows that I foretold of the outer barrier 2 years before it went up. So when Corey started talking about it after it'd been up for a few years, I was like, oh, so someone else, you know, there's someone who actually is getting valid information. A lot of the information that a lot of the testimony Corey gave in the beginning of his career, you know, of disclosing this stuff was correct, but now he's recanting, and that's because he probably got tired and they offered him money, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the original information was correct, and I knew it was correct because I had been originally given that information in '82. I
agree with that, just based on the way it resonated with me, the original information. Yeah.
Well, that's because you're into it. You're listening to all this stuff, and you're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what makes sense and what doesn't. So because of the outer barrier, we have an opportunity to defeat them. The Spirit beings would have never put up the outer barrier. And this is what I was telling the Admiral yesterday. The Spirit beings would never have put up the outer barrier if they didn't know we had a chance to defeat the remaining draconian assets, if they didn't know we were going to do that. And so we are. And so there is, and then when I'm being told by the White Hats, which is not just admirals, it's other generals as well, the U.S. military, that kind of Trump got involved in putting together. He got involved in putting together a lot of White Hats, giving him a lot of facility during his 4 years. And so they actually got together with the Nordics, apparently some Andromedian assets here in our solar system. Remember, it's only what's inside our solar system that we can use to fight the Draco, the remaining draconian assets. Apparently, they cleared out all the 113 DUMs, the deep underground military bases in the United States, and they started clearing out the over 1,000 DUMs throughout the rest of the world. And then I don't have current. They haven't defeated them yet, but there was supposed to be a big battle, and I guess it didn't go down the way they wanted. Meaning end the war battle. And then I warned them about that. I said, you guys you might be sucked out into a trap. And I was right. Whatever, you know, I'm not in charge of that group because it's a bunch of special forces people and a bunch of White Hats, and there is a current battle, and they will continue to battle with the Nordic technology, the Nordics. Now, remember, the Nordics, they actually signed a treaty with the Draconian Empire 500 years ago. Remember that was called the Muhammad Accord. You guys heard of the Muhammad Accord?
Yeah.
Well, that was a treaty between the Nordics and the Draconian Empire. You know, and they mentioned when that's the one where Mars was created, and they destroyed that Marsdick planet, and then that's the Kuiper Belt. That was that war. Yeah, that was the war. Right. That was the war between the Nordics and the Draconian Empire. So they made a treaty. And that treaty was that they were no longer engaged against each other. Well, why would the Nordics be engaging against the Draconian Empire and breaking that treaty unless there was an outer barrier? Unless there was, you know, the outer barrier went back. And remember, the Nordics are the ones that said, well, there was an outer barrier there, but it got destroyed. Nobody's explaining how it got removed. I don't know how it got removed, but it's back. And the Nordics are the ones that told the United States, and Corey, you know, also became privy to that. They had explained that the barrier was back and it had been there before. And then the Nordics knew about that because there were 17 million. Remember, the Nordics have been around for 17 million years. Everybody thinks that this planet's only been occupied for a few thousand years by humans. It's not. The Nordics were the first humans, and they've been here for 17 million years. And they went from the surface. They went from the surface into the underground honeycomb. And then again, you know, the world is a toroid. Remember, it's got that big hole in the middle. It's actually a toroid. It's not a sphere, you know, stuff like that. So that's what's going on. You want to know current events. We're currently engaged in a heavy battle with comparable technology with the remaining draconian assets inside of our solar system. When they are defeated, and they expect to defeat them within, they keep saying a couple months, you know, but it could be this year or next year, but we will be defeating the draconian assets. And once that happens, then they're going to release the technology.
Now,
And I know what technology is going to get released because I debated it with them, with the White Hats. I did. Yeah, they wanted to discuss. Well, what technology we were going to release. So go ahead, ask your question.
Well, I was just going to ask how much of this was actually foreseen with a looking glass type of technology.
They're always looking into the looking glass. These guys are telling me they're always looking into the looking glass. The problem with when the spirit beings tell you something about the future, that's not looking glass technology they're using. Spirit beings are the most advanced species in the universe. Okay, the five alien groups that make up the Spirit Being Alliance. They don't look into the looking glass to see what's in the future. They go to the future. They go there and they see. So, and there's only one natural timeline, and deviating from a natural timeline is actually strictly prohibited. A lot of people talk, well, you go back and we can change time. No, you can't do that. The reason is because if John says, well, I don't like my future, therefore I'm going to go back and change time, and John gets a time machine, he goes back. It's actually, time machines are really actually easy to develop. Once you can develop warp one, you have a time machine, like Corey said, and it's true. Once you have warp one, temporal travel. Bob Lazar is a recruiter for the United States military, and he's recruiting temporal drive physicists so they can continue to develop temporal drive and hyperdrive technology. I mean, and so we've been traveling through time with ships, and that's allowed. So you're allowed to use it for traveling purposes, because you can't get from one galaxy to the next without temporal drive, hyperdrive. You can't do it unless you're going to go through the gates, and you can't really. The gates are very restrictive because you can only take a few people through at a time, especially the galaxy to galaxy gate. You remember the Ganymede gate? Ganymede is not a moon; it's a satellite, and it's a gate. The whole satellite is a galaxy to galaxy gate.
You're talking about like a Stargate. Okay.
Yeah. But a Stargate from galaxy to galaxy, there's only 3 in our galaxy. There's only 3 galaxy to galaxy gates in our galaxy, and one of them happens to be Ganymede. The whole moon of Ganymede is a Stargate.
Really?
So there's not an actually Stargate in that aspect.
No, there are Stargates. There are Stargates
to
planet to planet. Yeah, there's a lot of Stargates to planet to planet. We have several of them on Earth, and then of course in Saturn at the Starbase.
What do you know about any? Is there a Stargate in Israel? Have you heard that? I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard it. I don't know for sure, but it's possible.
I've heard that that's where a lot of these elites were trying to get to escape.
You can't.
Iraq, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's Iraq.
You can't get out of the outer barrier with a Stargate. Can't be done. And you can't even go through cross-dimensional. Eighth Force is trans-dimensional. Best way to understand the Eighth Force is, you remember the TARDIS in Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a telephone booth in one dimension, and then it's a ship in another dimension.
You're on the inside because it's...
Okay, so all parallel universes, the Eighth Force can reach through all parallel universes, and the Spirit Beings mastered the Eighth Force. So when they put up an outer barrier, it's an outer barrier through all universes. And so you can, even if you have Eighth Force capability, you can transcend through, travel through different parallel universes. You still can't escape the outer barrier. There is no escaping the outer barrier. The only way you can get through and anybody's telling you they're getting through the outer barrier is lying to you. The only way you can get through the outer barrier is with permission. The Spirit Beings have to actually say, we'll give you permission to go through the outer barrier. And they do give permission, but they say first you have to submit to a trial for your crimes first, before we'll let you through the outer barrier. That means no ICC members, no Nazi members, no Draconian members are going to be allowed through, because if they submit to trial, then they'll be convicted and sentenced.
How many of these people have been, I guess, wiped out, eliminated from the moon and Mars at this point? I've heard that.
I've been told it's a 5-to-1. It used to be a 30-to-1. When we did originally when we fought, when Eisenhower actually sent out, I think it was the first army to at the New Mexico Dulce facility to fight the Draconians and their underbound base. The first time a U.S. Army contingent actually went to try to fight the Draconian soldiers in an underground base was the Battle of Dulce, which was a real battle. And the loss was 30-to-1. We lost 30 special forces people to every one Draconian we had defeated in that battle. That's why they had to send a whole army to do it. Now, with the comparable technology, it's still, the Draconians are still superior, but it's only 5-1 losses. I've been reported it's a 5-1. So we lose 5 special forces for every 1 Draconian soldier that we defeat in the DUMs that we had. So we're supposed to have cleared out all the DUMs in the United States, and we're still clearing out the DUMs in throughout the world. The 100, the 1,000, the more than 1,000.
Okay.
So like a lot of these earthquakes and all this stuff that
are real battles.
Earthquakes.
Yeah. Those are real battles that are going on now. Now, when they win, I'll know when they win because that's when I get to go to work. I get to be the head of the chief technology officer of the commercial enterprise that we don't manufacture, we just develop. We do the prototypes of the technology, and then we sell it to the different manufacturers to produce it. But I know what the technology is because I'm the one that gets to be the chief technology officer of that release. That's why we're debating the technology. That's why I got to be the CTO.
Okay.
But I'll know when it's going to happen because then I get to go to work. And when I get to go to work, I'll say, hey guys, I'm working now. That means technology is going to be released within 1 year. These guys want it all done in a year. From the day I start to the day it gets released to the public, they want it done in a year. I'm like, okay, guys, yeah. They want it released very fast.
Is this
good?
Exactly. Good. Is this technology going to be presented to like SpaceX, Space Force? Are they? I mean,
no. Well, first off, Space Force came about in 1952. You're just now finding out about it.
Well, that was Solar Warden, right?
No. It was actually called Space Force. It was the United States Air Force. The United States Air Force contingent of one of the divisions of the United States Air Force was called Space Force. And in fact, that's what I was. I was a Space Force soldier in the United States Air Force. That's why I know that Space Force came about in 52. And also, one of the proofs is, the Stargate series, right? General Hammond.
Oh yeah.
And if you look at all of his insignia, it's the same as General Raymond, who was in charge of General Raymond, who was in charge of the real General Raymond, who was really in charge of, look up General Raymond, Space Force. He was the first 4-star Air Force general in command of Space Force that they revealed to you. See, they're just starting to reveal stuff to you that's been going on for years. I was Space Force started in 52. Trust me, I know.
So
I can prove it.
We know secret space programs have been going on for decades.
Ever since, for the United States, it's been ever since 52. When it surrendered to the Nazis, the U.S. got brought into the space program. And we're going to discuss that. Yeah.
Space Force was kind of created now to finally start creating something to start releasing the space, all the secret space stuff into.
Yeah, but as far as Earth Defense Force, the CIA is control and has been in control of Earth Defense Force, which is the spaceships that protect Earth. And we're not talking about satellites. We're talking about, warp. First off, the United States has had warp 9.8 for a long time, but you don't use warp 9.8 around the planet. You use basically warp 1 around the planet because you can get to really quick around the planet. You don't need any more warp 1 as far as Earth defense. And Mark McClandish, who died recently under suspicious conditions.
Yep.
It's hard to tell because we'll go over that another time. The thing is that Mark McClandish gave you very accurate drawings of real U.S. aircraft, the Aurora Pulsar, and then remember that ship that has all those crooked lines with the three spears.
Yeah,
those are three 6-4 spear engines that are rotated magnetically in order to push the force wherever they want to. So you have 3 of them. You can push them all like that, and then you go warp 1 around the Earth, or like this to hover. So those three balls are 6-4 engines, and they are manipulated magnetically. You can actually see. Actually, McClandish drew the magnets. He actually drew the magnets. You can actually see.
So, what was the strategic importance of Trump announcing the Space Force when he did? Because that had to be some type of a slap in the face to Draco.
No, actually, they were just really. What Trump was trying to do was get funding for the program that we were developing in order to fight the Draco.
Okay.
And so by making it a formal, instead of it being a sub part of the U.S. Air Force taking in funds from the Air Force and then filtering it down partially into the Space Force, now it's its own entity just as equal to U.S. Air Force gets as much funding as U.S. Air Force. So he needed that extra funding in order to finance the rebellion.
So what do you think his level of clearance is, Trump, as far as understanding what's going on?
They're really high on Trump because he actually did win the last election. Bronco Belichevsky, my controller in 96, 98, he told me, he said, we control all elections. The ICC controls all elections, and I'm the one that's in charge of doing it. And let me tell you how I do it. So I know how all of the elections in the United States were controlled by the CIA, how they were all rigged by the CIA. I know exactly how it's done.
It's been rigged for a long time.
Yeah. And then when the computer system came out, where we now voted by computer, I said, well, that's going to make it harder for you. And he probably said, no, it's easier now. He said it was much harder when it was done, when it was done in paper, when I was in control of rigging all the elections. He was the commander, and the CIA commander in charge of rigging all U.S. elections. Basically the IC, he said, no matter who's in power, no matter who gets elected, we're in power, which means the ICC runs all of the politicians. They control all of the politics. There's no exception. Republicans, Democrats, they control
so
parties.
Was Trump, because what I've heard is that Trump was basically like recruited by the White Hats or the Alliance.
Yes.
To be like the front guy for.
Well, they were trying to get him to get funding, and also to do a lot of interference with ICC activities. Remember, the rebellion is current. We're actually in a war. We are really in a shooting war right now.
So the cabal of the deep state wanted Hillary to win. Like, they were planning on that, right? And then Trump was kind of like a surprise to them. Like, they're like, wait, he wasn't supposed to win. How did this happen?
Right.
And they freaked out about it.
Yeah, and they actually tried to rig that election, but they couldn't. But they figured out what their mistakes were, and they definitely were able to rig the next election with Biden. You do remember that when Obama was in office, Obama served the ICC. Everybody served the ICC before Trump.
Yeah.
When Obama was in office, and in November, when his election was about to be decided, Biden and who was the Secretary of State at the time? What was his name? Secretary of State under Obama. Anyway, those two, Kerry. So Kerry and Biden both went up to Mikado. And what was going on in Mikado at that time? Why was everybody in Mikado? Why was the Vatican represented in Mikado? Why were all the heads of state up in Mikado? What was going on? Well, the outer barrier got put up. And so they had to they wanted to renegotiate the treaty, because all the countries want to know, hey, what's going on now if the outer barrier's there? And so they had to renegotiate a new treaty, and that's what Biden.
When you say Mikado, are you talking? You mean McMurdo?
McMurdo, sorry.
McMurdo down in Antarctica.
McMurdo is a military base in Antarctica.
Yeah,
that's where they negotiated the new treaty. And Biden and Kerry were the two representatives from the ICC negotiating the treaty.
And that's why they went down there to Antarctica.
Right. Yeah. So that tells you who Biden and Kerry are. You know. So of course they wanted them. The ICC wanted them in power, and they were going to rig the election to put them in.
So the reason I asked you that about the Space Force being like a slap in the face or something, because whenever he announced it, the media just shat all over it. They were totally against it, saying it's a stupid idea. They came up with a Netflix show to make it a laughing stock. When you Google Space Force, you can't even find anything about the branch of military.
That's right. They're going to
part of that. They don't want people.
They're going to continue to giggle factor all of this, because they don't want the public to know what's really going on. They don't want the public involved. They don't want the public involved. They don't want the public to get involved. They don't want the public to know what's really going on. They're still constantly doing that giggle factor thing, Space Force, yeah, right, like there's they still do that all the time. That's the ICC propaganda, Nazi propaganda ministry. That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, this is all mind-blowing stuff. I mean,
so many places we could go with this.
Yeah.
We will, guys. I'm available.
So, what is the Vatican's involvement in all of this?
Oh my God! You got to. Okay, that's crazy stuff. All right, you ready? You're ready for this? Okay. So when they first were able to go back into time, which I think was like in the 80s, they could do it really securely, and actually send a person back in time. then they were very curious. Well, first of all, they had to go to the Super Federation and ask for permission to go back in time. And you're only allowed to go back into time to verify. You guys are not presently viewing right now, or am I? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you kind of went still for a second. Yeah, Zoom's kind of buggy. Anyway, so what happened is so they asked for permission to go back in time to verify certain historical events, and of course they wanted to go back in and verify the life of times of Jesus Christ. They wanted to go back in and verify the life and times of Muhammad. They wanted to go back and verify all these religious icons, and they did. They went back. They verified Jesus. They weren't, Muhammad was a regular person. He wasn't like Jesus. They found out Jesus was an alien, that he was an alien, and that he'd been preaching this philosophy on many other planets. That's why the Venusians say Christianity is real from Venus. And they came here.
When you say he's an alien, he looked like a human.
No, they're human. Yeah. Not just you gotta understand the spirit beings can appear in any material form that they want to.
Okay. So you mean like he wasn't just like an incarnated ascended master or something? You mean he was he like came here?
He's an actual spirit being, but yet one of the things you have to understand about the spirit beings is they're highly advanced spiritually. Let me explain why. All the spirit beings, the entities, the souls, all the spirit beings, they exist in a 8th force sphere. That's what they use, 8th force technology. And their ships are 8th force ships. And you saw one of the 8th force ships, the Jupiter ship, the Jupiter-sized ship that was making adjustments to the sun in 2014. That actually came back here last month. And then that went up on the internet. Then it came off. The ice. Oh, no, don't let them know they're making adjustments to the sun again. That's actually one single 8th force ship. And there's one entity inside of it that's controlling it. And the way they do that, remember, again, I discovered the 8th force, so I know this stuff. What happens is that you use the great technology and you take your soul from the great technology. You take your soul from one physical being and put it into another physical being and clone of yourself. And that's the technology that was used for the 20 and back program. But at the same time, you can use that same technology to take your soul out of your physical body and put it into an 8th force sphere. And once a soul is in the 8th force sphere, nothing can penetrate the 8th force. Nothing, absolutely nothing can penetrate the 8th force. But once your soul is inside the 8th force, you can't do anything unless you have great psionic powers. And all the spirit beings have developed their psionic powers, their psionic capabilities, the ability to do things with your mind. And you can't even move. You can't even move an 8th force ship unless you have psionic abilities, and your soul only. And of course, you're vulnerable if you take any matter into the 8th force. That's vulnerable. So you have to only have the soul in the 8th force in order to be super powerful, and nobody can touch you, nobody can defeat you. But when your soul is inside the 8th force, you can no longer enjoy the material senses. So if you have any attachment to the material world or material senses, you couldn't stay in an 8th force ship for very long. So all these people, all these spirit beings that are in those 8th force ships, they're all highly spiritually advanced, and one of them was Jesus Christ. And they can take their soul and put it into a physical body, just like they took their soul out of their physical body and put it into the 8th force sphere. So Jesus was a spirit being. And he had taught those same teachings on many planets, not just our planet. And they discovered that, the United States discovered that by going back in time and observing that. So that's why what happened was now. I'm sorry, go ahead, ask your question. I was trying to continue on with the prior question.
Go ahead. That's what I was going to get back to.
So you got a little background. You got a little bit of background. Okay. So what happened was the United States actually, when they started doing the time travel thing, they changed time. They made it look like the Nazis didn't win the war when they did. 1952, they went back and changed time. And they weren't supposed to do that. So the Super Federation said, guess what? Your sanction is you got to make it go back. And you remember Randy Kramer's always saying we had to nudge it back. That was our punishment. You have to nudge the timeline back to its original timeline. And then Corey Good's always saying time is elastic. It always goes back.
He would say it would always snap back every time they would change something.
So we're making these nudges. And then Randy Kramer, he said, well, we have these monasteries, these Vatican monasteries way out into the future. And he said 50 years, but it's actually 100, 500, and 1,000 years. There's actually different monasteries out into the future. And they're all monitoring a timeline to see if we're bringing it back. So there's a nudge that's made, and then all these monastics in these different monasteries in the future, they report as to what happens. And the only reason that you're using Vatican monks is because they believe in Jesus Christ more than any other icon. And that's why they chose the Vatican monks. But also, these monks are just the same as the spirit beings. They have to be detached from material life. They have to no longer have any interest in material life, because you're not going to trust somebody to tell you what whether the nudge made sense. You're not going to trust that person unless that person is very spiritually advanced, because they may have their own personal motives. So that's why they chose the Vatican monks, and that's why the Vatican's involved.
Well, then what about the dark side of the Vatican that we're learning about, the reptilian side? We know.
Yes, of course, that's all true.
So, and then what's their motive in being in that position, besides, we know about the Act of 1871 and the Three-City Empire, and we know they're trying to monopolize the whole world with, from the District of Columbia, the Vatican, and in London, the central banking system. Is that all still in place, or is that being liberated?
Yeah, no, that's all being dismantled in the war that's going on. But it won't be fully dismantled until we actually defeat all the draconian ships that are remaining in our solar system. But you got to remember, the draconians are the ones that demoed us 250,000 years ago. So they also interjected a interpretation of religious teachings in order to control us. Turn the other cheek. Don't fight back.
Yeah.
Give to Caesar what Caesar's due. Those are not in the original teachings. Actually, and I was just told this yesterday, and I always knew this, 9/10 of the Bible have been suppressed. But they're in the Vatican. But they're in the Vatican.
They took out a lot that should have been in there. Yeah.
So yes, the draconians controlled religion for their benefit, in order to suppress technology and to control the slaves, and to prepare the slaves. Remember, your economic slavery is a preparation. It's a training. You're being trained to do the things that you're going to do on the 26 planets that you were supposed to be delivered up to. Remember, 26 experiments is really 26 planets that you were all supposed to be delivered up to. There were 26 planets that bought you all, and you were supposed to be delivered up to them, but they wanted you all properly propagandized into slavery existence and accept slavery existence, so that you would do that when you were delivered up to those planets.
So
go ahead.
So why do we see things playing out the way they are playing out on the surface right now in the political arena? Because it very much appears that they're still pushing for that agenda.
The ICC is still in power. We haven't defeated them yet.
Okay.
The alliance hasn't defeated them yet. 1/3 of the population is being culled with a virus, with not only the virus, but its vaccine.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me tell you how that happened. So all of a sudden the outer barrier goes into effect, and we can't be delivered up into slavery. That we were supposed to be delivered up into slavery that month. They were going to, global warming and everything. They were going to distress the planet to the point where they were going to tell everybody, okay, you're all going to die because the planet's going to go supernova soon or whatever. Global warming was designed in order to distress the planet, when these 26 planets came to us with their ships and said, hey, we'll save you guys, but you got to work on our planet. We'll save you from this, from all these calamities. You just got to come up to our planet.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that was all a scam. That's all design. That's all a scam to get you all to leave. Yeah. Okay. So when the outer barrier was put up, we're still in that situation. That's why the spirit being started to adjust the sun to reduce its intensity, so global warming wouldn't have its effect. But the ICC is still in command. And so they said, well, you know what? We want to preserve the slaves because we think we can take down the outer barrier. That's what they're telling us, telling the ICC. Don't you change the agreement? We're going to take down that outer barrier. We're going to take down that outer barrier. You keep with the agreement. And so the ICC, okay, we'll keep with the agreement. But actually, they're thinking about going on with the alliance and helping defeat them. But they don't tell the Dracos that to their face. They tell the Dracos, oh yeah, we're going to keep with the agreement. Yeah. So what happened is now, in order to preserve enough of the population to be transported off into slavery when they take down the outer barrier, they had decided they have to cull 1/3 of the planet because there's not enough resources here. Well, there is enough resources here, but they don't want you to know that because the technology is suppressed. In order to keep the technology suppressed, they can't release any of the higher technology. They have to keep it suppressed. They have to cull 1/3 of the population. That was the calculation. And then they came up with this virus and the vaccine. Both do it. both kill 1/3 of the population. And we can't change that until we win the war.
And so Stuart Swirlow, you know who that is?
No.
He's a researcher. He talks about the same thing. He said they aren't like breeding our population to kill us all and reduce us. Like the Georgia Guidestones weren't originally.
No,
that number wasn't meant that they wanted to kill us all. They didn't get us to 7 billion people so they can kill us all. But they wanted to trade us off.
Well, we were already traded. We were already traded. The United States took the technology in the trade for the 90% for all of us.
They just had delivered.
We were all supposed to be delivered up on December 14th.
And then how did they purchase us with our birth certificates? Like, did they purchase?
No. Every remember Corey Good told you that we don't need to put a nanotech device into you in order to be able to watch you from space.
Yeah,
and we can watch you from space just from your DNA.
They can track.
Your DNA is your tracking device.
Yeah.
And they have all of your DNA on record.
Yeah,
Draco.
Okay.
You were already sold, all of you. As soon as you're born, they have your DNA and they sell it.
So it was just a matter of time before they were going to trade us off, but the barrier's stopping us or stopping them.
Yeah, we were supposed to be delivered up in December of 2014. They were going to come up with this false flag event, and everybody's going, and then the ships are going to come in. We'll save you. Come to our planet, you know. And then everybody was going to get on board. You were all going to go. You were all going to go.
Not that they needed to do that, but it probably would have made it easier on them to corral everyone, I'm sure.
Well, you were going to want to go. You have to want to go. Rather than want to go, you know, and to global warming and oh my God, the aliens are coming to attack, and yeah, sure, I'll leave. I'll go with your planet. And they were going to advertise, check out our planet's pristine, and this is your new residence, and this is your new job, and you know, and perfect medical condition. You'll live for 300 years because we have med pods.
Yeah, well, they've been recruiting or convincing people to join all kinds of programs for a long time by telling them, oh, you're going to have this wonderful, luxurious life. It's going to be amazing. Right. And then they're going to slavery.
Well, that happened to Larry.
Yeah, your friend Larry.
A friend of mine claimed he was recruited to go to Mars, and in July of 2017, he went missing. But he told me, I actually spoke on this at ESETI, the conference. He was trying to get me to go with him. And he was laying it out for me, or he was telling me that they were trying to making it very luxurious. They were making it sound like he was going to have it made up there.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot more to
but
that.
It's not like that on Mars. But I'm going to tell you, it is like that on those 26 planets. They are telling the truth. Life would be much better for you. You're going to live 300 years, never be sick, get to raise your family, have a nice house, get to enjoy all this technology, but you still have to work as an industrial slave the same way you did on Earth.
You're still going to be a slave. Yeah.
But you all would have gone for it. And that's true. That's actually true. Now, the Mars colonies, the 5 Mars colonies, they treat them very poorly. And in fact, when the war ends, and I was telling the Admiral yesterday, I said, when the war ends, they're all coming home. And you know that. They don't. He said, no, we want them to manufacture our new stuff. I said, no, they're not going to do that. And you know they're not going to do it. They're all coming home. He said, oh, you're right.
So what was I going to say? Oh, it's like that meme. You've seen that meme that says, I will literally pay you to abduct me. They get people so miserable to a point where they want to go, you know?
Yeah, that's right. They were distressing this planet, and it was supposed to be distressed even more. It was going to be much worse in December 2014, but the spirit beings put that Jupiter, it's actually bigger than Jupiter. The Jupiter-sized spirit being right next to the sun, and you saw they were sucking out the plasma. Yeah. What they were doing was reducing the heat of the sun so that a global warming wouldn't have the effect that it was supposed to have at that date.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
And they came back last month and did the same thing. They made another adjustment, another 20% adjustment, reduction in heat.
So when we see, do you know anything about the Schumann resonance and what's going on with that chart right now as far as why we're having blackouts and whiteouts? Do you know anything about that?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it just, the Schumann resonance is just like the frequency that the Earth is vibrating at.
Well, it's, it goes along with there's all the talk about the ascension that's happening and the frequencies rising, and it's
okay. We talked about that.
Is reacting because of that, and
it's supposedly they're supposed to be. Well, first off, you don't get spiritual advancement without working for it. Okay, that's one thing. And there's supposed to be a big event in 2031, a big solar event that was supposed, that's supposed to destroy the surface of the planet. But you have to understand, Corey Good explained that, and this is the truth. The spear beings came here and they put spears all over our solar system in order to absorb that energy. So the solar flash itself is not going to happen. But this spiritual event, the spiritual ascension, is actually the Earth Alliance defeating the Draco, because then they release the technology. And once you no longer have to work, trust me, when this technology is released, you don't have to work anymore. And the government's going to be giving you a big paycheck every month. I think like $2,000 or $3,000 a month.
Well, you'll be able to live the life you want to live. And actually,
but if you don't have to work anymore, then your mind starts, it doesn't stop working. Your mind wants to work on something. And most people are just going to start working on their own spiritual advancement. They're going to be very interested in, what is the real religion? Not the bullshit, not the bullshit stuff that the ICC has been teaching us. But what's real? And so that's really the ascension is, but it comes after the technology is released and after you've been freed from industrial slavery. That's where the ascension comes from. A lot of you will become so spiritually advanced that you will really truly ascend, like they did in the Stargate series. Yeah. A few of you will actually ascend, but the ascension really is, remember how the Asgard say you're on your way to becoming the sixth species? Well, the spirit beings, the reason they put the outer barrier around our solar system is, yes, humanity is on its way to becoming the sixth species in the Spirit Being Alliance. But like I said before, you have true spiritual advancement is you don't have any interest in material attachments, no interest in enjoying the material senses anymore. It's really high level, I got to tell you guys.
Yeah.
So we hear about this UFO disclosure. So many people have been talking about, like, when are the ETs going to show up, blah, 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 blah. Is there any information on that actually happening, to where there'll be some type of mass event where ETs will show themselves?
Yes, it's not a mass event. Once we win the war, the ICC is not going to let you see any aliens, So once the Earth Alliance White Hats win the war, they are going to start introducing you. And I've actually been told, again, by the Admiral, which species you're going to get introduced to first. It's a very charismatic species. They actually showed me the film. A lot of the films of the species, of all these species 3,000, by the way, Smith, what's his name? Smith, he talked about autopsies on, I'm sorry.
Emery Smith? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he talks about there being 3,000 species, 3,000 space-faring species. There are actually more sentient species, but there are 3,000 space-faring species in this galaxy alone, 900 of which the ICC does commercial business with on a regular basis. Can't do it anymore because of the outer barrier, but they were doing that on a regular basis. Anyway, so a lot of species that Randy and Emery are now talking about, those are real species. Those are the ones you're going to be introduced to. The first one, and there were films, black and white films taken of all these species starting in 1960. And the Admiral showed me one of the black and whites of one of the first species you'll be introduced to, the elephant-headed ones.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. He actually showed me the film, and we'll go over this in detail. We won't do it right now, but because it's a long story, it'll take me 30 minutes to go over. It's really cool. It's a really cool film. So I know the species you're going to be introduced to first, and the species that Randy and Emery just did a show on, and they talk about the species you're also going to be introduced to. You're going to be allowed. The outer barrier won't be removed, and they're not going to allow you to travel to the local 52, the local 52 bubble, meaning the public. But the public will be allowed to go to all the planets. And one of the devices that they want me to create is a very inexpensive Warp 1 ship for tourists. And then you can actually, as an individual, go around to the different planets and different bases
in the solar system.
Yeah. And all those species that Emery and Randy are talking about in that last video they did, they're here. They have bases here, and you get to go to those bases and talk to them and all that.
So I know when Emery, when he was originally coming on Cosmic Disclosure, he had talked about seeing the movie Jupiter Ascending, and when he saw the elephant figure, or was it Emery or Corey that said that? One of the two.
I don't know, but I can give you an accurate description of the elephant being that I was shown a video of.
But real quick though, what he said is when he saw that in the movie, he was like stopped in his tracks because he was like, okay, somebody knows something here because this is a real species.
Yeah, that's a real species. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so they're actually residing here.
I call them the Ganesh, but I don't really know their real name. I call them the Ganesh because of something in Indian lore. Yeah. But that might not be their real name. But that's what I refer to them, the Ganesh, because they look like Ganesh.
Yeah.
It's really cool. You have no idea how cool it is to watch, actually be shown a video of a real alien. He was the commander of a ship, and he was, he was talking about his ship, and he took us, and we had there were two cameramen, two United States cameramen with 16mm cameras on the board shooting him, and then one cameraman, panned over to the other cameraman, and then the other cameraman panned over to the other cameraman. It was pretty cool. Now, we'll go over that. I'm going to take quite a lot. That's a real disclosure.
Well,
I'm sorry, a real experience. Yeah.
So you're saying that they actually have a base here on Earth? They're residing here right now, those Ganesh.
Oh yeah. The Ganesh have facilities here on Earth, but they have facilities in our solar system. That's what's more important to understand. They have bases. The United States has 100 bases throughout this solar system alone. I was told that there are 8 oceans in our solar system off this planet. And the ocean under Saturn is supposed to have so many more species than our oceans do, like several hundred more times species than our oceans do, than our ocean does. And they're all different, quote unquote. They're very different. I love that one. And then we have bases under those oceans, all 8 of them. If you look it up, NASA describes 8 oceans in our solar system. Those oceans we all have bases on those. And when you get your Warp 1 ship to go traveling on your tour, you get to go to those bases, and you get to see all those species yourself. And you get to meet the aquatics, the sentient aquatic species that are in charge of those planets, that rule those planets.
What about,
it's like you get all the species in this solar system that Corey told you about, you get to meet. The Venusians, The Day the Earth Stood Still, I was told by the animal, is a real movie of a real incident. And so the Nordics. Commander Thor has 200 underground, 200 ships that are here throughout our planet, and they're underground and they're cloaked. And I can tell you a whole story about those guys. They're here for observation of Earth's transition into the new era, quote unquote.
So how many ships are flying around cloaked above our heads every day? I mean, is that actually happening? Like if they were
all of the ICC ships and also the Nordics and all the ships are cloaked, all cloaked. You can't see them.
So when people see UFOs, what is that?
Usually those are from usually from other planets with uncloaked ships.
Okay.
Not every species uses cloaking.
Okay.
It was just like in wasn't Star Wars. It was, you remember the Stargate? No,
Star Trek?
Stargate Enterprise. No, Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
And the Klingons have cloaking. Not every species has cloaking or uses cloaking.
Okay.
So the species that were visiting us, the ships that you would see, those are uncloaked from species that are uncloaked, that use uncloaked ships.
So you talked about the Prime Directive being a real thing, as far as you have to prove your space in space.
Yeah, you have to
Place
show
in
Warp 1
space
capability before you're allowed to speak to any other sentient species any other spacefaring sentient species. You have to prove you can develop Warp 1 on your own, and that's what the Nazis did. They weren't handed that technology. That technology was not handed to them. They achieved Warp 1 themselves before they started negotiating with the Draco and the other and the Greys and everyone else. You have to achieve Warp 1 first with a real ship in space.
So the whole Maria Orsic thing and them channeling blueprints from the Vril, why is that story so popular?
Why is the ICC interjecting those stories in? Because the ICC doesn't. The ICC is kind of saying in a way that, well, if we want you to be out there, then we'll give you the technology by channeling it to you, which is not true. What they're trying to do is prevent people from developing the technology themselves. They always want to suppress the technology. And one of the ways to suppress the technology is say, don't bother trying because it'll just get channeled to you.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's interesting. But I mean, it appears that they were, according to William Tompkins, these girls were real and they really were channeling stuff. It just wasn't.
They were after Warp 1 was achieved by the Nazis in 1929.
Okay.
Okay, see, the Nazis achieved Warp 1 in 1929. Then they went to the moon and to Mars, and that's where they started running into the aliens. That's when they started making all agreements, started trading for technology. They can get technology then at that time. Remember the Nazi, remember the Ganymede 3? Okay, Mark McClanahan, you saw those 3 saucers, the little ones, the 3 little ones. Those are actually, the Nazis actually traded those. Actually, I'm sorry, the Nazis gave those to the United States in 1952 when we signed the treaty with them. The surrender treaty in July 1952. Those 3 ships were given to them. That's the Hannibal 1, the Hannibal 2, and the Hannibal 3. The Hannibal 3 is the bigger one, and the Nazis actually took 3 officers, 3 U.S. officers, I think 2 majors and a colonel, with them in the Hannibal 3 that McClanahan drew for you. They actually took them to Mars in what was called the first joint U.S. Nazi mission, 1936. The first time the U.S. ever traveled to the moon and Mars was in 1936 in the Hannibal 3 that McClanahan drew for you.
So then the whole Apollo program was just a dog and pony show.
Well, no. You don't. In order to suppress the technology, you have to let all the current scientists. You have to shove them into a program that's going nowhere. See, there are a lot of scientists that are bright, and so what you do, you want to hire them and say, okay, you can't work on anything else except for this, which is garbage. So it was their way of, it's again a technology suppression technique.
Well, NASA was literally created, from what I've heard, mainly so we have a fake public space program. So
as well,
the rest can stay more hidden and no one will ever think twice about
suppression on many different levels.
Everyone thinks, this is the only space program, that's it, and it's all fake. And
right, and this is the best we can do with rocket technology.
Yeah, this is the best we can do. Yep.
1840 technology, that's the best we can do.
Well,
I remember the admiral said, just how antiquated is the technology that's current? And I said, what, 1800s? He said, no, 1600s.
I mean, we've seen depictions of rockets and hieroglyphs. I mean, I don't know what that means, what that,
right,
but clearly it's old.
It's just,
So then why are we still using the same technology with SpaceX? Is it just to continue to show?
Yeah, remember the IC still in command, so they're still using now SpaceX also as a ruse. I call it the rocket ruse. Give me a little idea about how advanced our technology is, because they do reveal some stuff, but they're actually doing it in recruiting purposes. The only technology, the real technology you see is for recruitment purposes. And you remember Tom DeLonge with Off to the Stars Academy, and he's talking about that little wafer that was the magnesium and bismuth wafer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? That's actually a recruitment test. Lockheed Martin's is recruiting. And if you can figure out how that wafer works, which I did easily, and I'll tell you real quick. So the bismuth releases the 6 force. You shoot a certain electromagnetic wave at the 2 terahertz frequency across the bismuth, and it releases the 6 force up into the magnesium, and then the magnesium releases the 7th force, and that's why the penny that was laid on top of it disappeared, because it got transduced from matter into energy by the 7th force. Those are replicators. That's a replicator. That little wafer is for replicators. Oh. That's the major component in replicator. So Lockheed Martin's recruiting through Off to the Stars Academy.
Well, and then they obviously, we know that they seem to be a part of the ICC.
They are.
Yeah, the 2 stars.
They're recruiting. They're always recruiting.
Yeah.
The great brain drain never stopped. They always take the best, and they ship them up to Mars.
Yep. Take them off.
They always take the best. They take all the best, and they ship, because that's part of how you suppress the technology. You take the best scientists and take them away. That's how you suppress the technology. So Lockheed Martin is recruiting, and that's a recruitment technique, and they're using Tom DeLonge to do the recruiting.
Well, and
so as soon as the ICC is defeated and the cabal is defeated, are all these scientists going to be finally freed, basically, so they can? They're
going to be free, and they're going to be working in commercial corporations.
But then to create this technology, that'll be released to everyone.
All that technology will be released into society.
Yeah.
One piece at a time. I know the two most. I know. You want to go over it? You want to hear it?
I mean, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, the two pieces that are going to be released initially, because you remember, you have this antiquated infrastructure. So you have to work with the antiquated infrastructure. You can't immediately release high-level technology because you don't have the infrastructural base for it.
Yeah.
So the first thing that's going to be released are generators for homes, over Unity generators. You guys are aware of the compact fusion generator the Navy released? Compact fusion generator?
Maybe.
The Navy released that one in a 2019 patent.
That's what it was.
You can actually look it up on the internet. Navy's compact fusion generator. If you what?
The Salvatore Pais.
Right. That's actually a group, not a person. That's a team, not a person. It was a person, but he died, and the team is called Salvatore Pais. And then you don't know any of the names of the team because they don't want to reveal those names. But what the Navy's telling you is that over Unity's real. 1,000 over Unity's nothing. Here's a compact fusion generator. It's 1,000 over Unity's nothing. And that's what's gonna they're gonna swap out nuclear power plants for that compact fusion generator. But it's not a very practical generator for putting in a house because it's like 6,000 degrees too hot. My generator is this size. Uses off-the-shelf components, probably costs a couple hundred in mass production, a couple $100 to build. Uses transform technology, runs totally cool. Solid state, kicks out 25 kilowatts, continuous, run your house for 30 years nonstop. That's what's going to happen first, because those are the cheap things to put into every house. So now you got a $20 a year electric bill, because that's what it costs to buy the generator. They're going to probably sell them at $2,000. But $20 a year electric bill that runs everything, all your heating, all your air conditioning, everything.
Well, that'd be great.
Wow. That's the first one. Go ahead.
Well, I'm curious on what's going to happen with the airline. The airlines, because how are they going to transition out of that?
Well, they don't really need airlines because the cars that they're going to release to you go very, very fast. Well, so do the airplane. They can actually, the car that's going to be released to you is an airplane. It's not an airplane. It's a six force aircraft, like the one that Nikola Tesla patented in 1921.
The land speeder from Star Wars.
Yeah. Except the car, the car that Obi-Wan gets into, and kind of, and Corey Good talked about it too. When you step into it, kind of bounces a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then the speeders, and then the cars are the same. Those are the devices that they want to release. But those are too slow. I want the faster ones, and there are faster ones that I have designed, and so they want to use the faster ones, but the faster ones have to be controlled by artificial intelligence. You can't control them. Then that's why Elon Musk is doing that whole thing with AI cars and everything like that. But we have AI with quantum computers. He's not using quantum computers. The AI capability requires quantum computers. I don't know if you guys know about quantum computers. 1965, Richard Feynman got the Nobel Prize for the quantum computer in 1965.
Okay.
We've had the quantum computers capable of controlling all, doing the air traffic of all these vehicles. But it's really like that. They look a lot like that. Except
otherwise they'd be crashing.
Except mine go faster. So they zoom around the planet. They can zoom around the planet warp one, so there's no reason for aircraft anymore. They are aircraft. You got one at this altitude, maybe 3 feet off the ground. It's like maybe 12 feet off the ground, going in different directions.
So what would you do? Just like program in it where you want to go, and then it just
takes you that's right. Zoom. There you're there in a heartbeat.
We see this depicted in Star Wars all the time when they show the cities with all the cars just going.
That's what you're going to be in, and very quickly.
So we won't need a book. We won't need to buy a plane ticket.
But I told them, hold on. I told them that's going to take 10 years, and it'll probably take 10 years to really bring that out. And then they said, but we want something right away. And I said, well, that's a magnetic piston engine that swaps out your gas engine. So all your gas cars are going to take out the government's going to pay for it. They're going to take out your gas engines. They're going to swap in a magnetic piston engine like the electricity source comes from my over Unity generator about this size, sits into the car with a new magnetic piston engine and runs your cars. So your cars, you no longer need to fuel your car ever. And then in the 10 years it takes to bring out the new technology, like you said, in the meantime, you'd be driving around in cars that don't require fuel.
Yeah. And what about the potential of like a mini portal system? Like you could have a portal in every city, so you can just like hop from city to city.
That's usually for government purposes, and the reason is because constant use of transporters has a detrimental health effect.
Oh, okay.
Which is why they don't really want to use transporters. That's why when Corey told you that they took him up to the Loach in a shuttle, they didn't transport him up to the Loach. I mean, the lunar operations Japan, they didn't transport him. They had been transporting scientists there for years, and then they started deteriorating mentally, getting Alzheimer's really soon, and they realized it was because they were using the transporters. So they stopped using the transporters for anything else but essential military operations, and then they went back to using shuttles because the Warp 1 shuttle gets there soon enough. 30 minutes, you're on. It takes more time to get the permission to land than it does to get there in a Warp 1 shuttle. So Warp 1 ships, and that's gonna be debated again. But they already know that they don't want people using transporters regularly because it does have detrimental health effects.
So I just keep coming up with more questions, but
well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. This is
you know anybody else that actually has real answers? You got to be an advanced physicist. You got to become an advanced physicist before you can really do this.
Yeah. Well, so you haven't come public. I know you've done a few radio shows with somebody before that really didn't get much views, I don't believe.
Janet, and it's a radio show, Janet Less.
Yeah. But outside of that, you haven't really come forward publicly.
No.
So this is new information for a lot of the viewers right now.
Yeah. You guys probably have a better viewing than Janet did,
Yeah.
But
sure, it's still.
Janet does.
Yeah. Well. Okay, so talking about if we're going to transition like that, it's going to take an entire reset of our infrastructure because, we have it. Our whole world is built right now to serve this old system.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to imagine what that transition would even look like because we'll have factories and airliners and all this stuff that are just of no use anymore, unless they'll still be. It's going to be a transition phase.
It could maybe be like retrofitted with.
I'll just give you an example. We're not really getting rid of the companies like you think. For example, the fastest way to bring the tech out to you in a vehicle is to actually swap in a magnetic piston engine for your gas engine. And that can be done within a year very quickly. But in order to do that, we have to go to each of the manufacturers of those gas engines and get their engineering teams to develop the specific ones for their specific vehicles. So we have to use the current corporations.
That's what exactly. So what is Elon Musk? What's his role actually right now? Do you have any intel on who is he? Because he's this anomaly. We don't know if he's a white hat or a black hat.
They keep asking me that. He doesn't. They really didn't tell him anything. They haven't told him anything. So he's not really neither. He sucked up to the money from the ICC. He doesn't really know he's serving the ICC, perpetuating the rocket ruse and other ruses, that the ICC put on in order to suppress the technology. Elon, like all the other companies, will want to know, well, what technology can I manufacture? For instance, all of his electric vehicles, we throw away the battery and we give them a fifth force generator. Sixth force generators will do the same thing, but they're a lot more expensive and a lot smaller. Sixth force has a lot more power density. Sixth force generator this size will do what a fifth force generator, a magnetic energy is fifth force. Sixth force generator also produces electricity. It will run Elon's car, and it's like that size. And we'll probably end up releasing the sixth force generators for the electric vehicles because the battery is so big. We have to kick out a 615 kilowatt generator, and that's a little bit too big on the fifth force. So we'll have to do that with a little sixth force generator for his electric cars, and then he manufactures those.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah,
everybody's going to be involved in the transition. Everybody's going to be involved in the transition.
What's interesting about the electric car is I saw something online the other day. This guy developed it on his own. He hooked up basically like a bike chain system to his rear wheel that would actually charge the battery while he's while he's driving. So
you can do that.
You never have to plug it in.
Did it on an electric car. They hooked up something to the.
That's what I'm talking about.
Charging it as it drove.
That's what I'm saying.
You can do that.
Bike.
You can bicycle charge.
I'm sorry.
You can bicycle charge.
I didn't mean bicycle. I meant car. No, I said they put like a bicycle chain on the wheel of the.
You're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. But it's like the whole charging station thing is just another. It's just pointless. It's like we're just spinning our wheels here, you know.
Well, more than likely for Elon's, there'll be a little bit 6-force generator like this in the last 30 years, and it just kicks out 615 kilowatts continuous, and his batteries weigh over 1,000 pounds. I don't know if you knew that. Those batteries weigh over 1,000 pounds. Can you imagine how fast those cars will get rid of those batteries?
Yeah.
And this thing only weighs a few pounds, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. He's going to get those. Of course, it'll be patented, you know, and he'll have to pay for the patent license, you know, he'll have to pay for the patent license, which he'll gladly do, you know.
Tyler, wasn't it Alex Collier that mentioned SpaceX was going to be used to release a lot of advanced technology? Like Alex Collier said that not that long ago. That was like the intel that he got. So
no, they're not going to do that. I'm absolutely certain. The vehicle that the vehicle they want me to design is an inexpensive Warp 1 ship for people to individually drive all around the solar system. A lot of you are going to be, and they want me to make it inexpensive, so it's accessible to the regular person.
Maybe
SpaceX is not going to be used to release any technology. You don't think?
Like that?
No. He'll be allowed to manufacture. He'll purchase the license to the technology from my company or a company like mine that. You know,
I think that's what he meant. He probably meant that they're going to like start showcasing this technology via Space Force or SpaceX vehicles, show the world that like we have this capability. So it can be integrated.
That might get like something SpaceX just developed.
But it's not a rocket. It's a 6-force. It's a 6-force ship. It's a little 6-force ship.
Yeah.
Real inexpensive, and an individual could drive it, and we make them for 1-seaters, 4-seaters, 8-seaters. You know, that's what I've been asked to design, which is actually really easy.
Just looking over my notes here to see a lot of the stuff I want to cover has to do with your testimony. So
do you want to take a break and then I can?
Yeah. So guys, we're gonna go ahead
and go to the bathroom and stuff.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. And thank you for tuning in, guys. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for everybody who supports us. We can't do this without you. Definitely stay tuned for the next one because you know it's going to be good. I can't wait to dive into the testimony. That's actually why I wanted to do this in the first place. I had no idea Dan was...
The 20 and back,
Yeah, I had no idea that all this other information came along with it. So see you guys next time.